So the Philadelphia Eagles have a number of decisions to make this offseason, and none of them will be fun. We have about 20 different free agents to go over. I went ahead and I took the top 10 guys that I think should be priority for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I went on and even did more. I categorized them by how important I think they are. So we're going to go over the bottom 5, we're going to go over the top 5, and I even threw an honorable mention in for you guys. So let's get into it.
You want Philly?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and it is Philly the podcast. So today, like I said, we are going to talk about the top 10 Philadelphia Eagle free agents, and I'm going to talk about the importance. I'm going to talk about why I put them there. I did post this graphic, the graphics you'll be seeing. I posted them on Instagram, I believe, and I believe Facebook and Twitter. So if you're following me over there, we might have already started this conversation. I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys my opinion on why these guys are so important. Now, before we get into that, be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, join the family, and leave in the comments, say like thank you to my girlfriend, because she's the one that made all these graphics. So let's give her a big shout out, you know that? All right, so we're going to be starting with the bottom 5, and obviously we're going to start with number 10 because I like to go in order. So we're going to start with Kaiser White. Look, I love Kaiser White. I'm not going to sit here and act like he had the, greatest breakout year for us. He came and gave us a little bit of stability at that linebacking position. I'm very, very grateful for the year that he gave to the Philadelphia Eagles. But at $8.5 million, I just feel like there's other guys that we could spend that money on per year. So if you do look at this, you'll see the full contract at the bottom. All these numbers are per over the cap. $8.5 million a year is a lot of money to bite, especially when you have a guy like Nakobe Dean waiting in the wings and hopefully ready to go. So Kaiser White is going to be at the bottom of the list, or at least this list for me right now. And then we get Fletcher Cox. This one was hard for me because part of me is like, listen, if Fletcher Cox wants to come back, it's hard to say no. But the market value right now is $14 million, 0.04 per year. I can't do that. I cannot do that. We have so many guys on this team, especially younger guys, that I feel like deserve a shot. Jordan Davis is coming up. Milton Williams has made some good plays, has had some good snaps. I feel like we're seeing a progression with him as a player. There's a lot of guys on this team, and I feel like there's even guys on this practice squad that could come in and make an impact on that defensive tackle spot. Are they going to be Fletcher Cox? No, they're not going to be Fletcher Cox. And what we had in him and what we had in Fletcher, we may never see something like that again. The NFL may never see a top 2 is spearheaded by a guy like Fletcher Cox and Aaron Donald. Again, those two were just freaks of natures in their prime. Obviously, Aaron Donald's prime is lasting a little bit longer, but I just think that it's time for the Philadelphia Eagles to cut ties, unfortunately, with Fletcher Cox. Then we get to Brandon Graham. I probably should have put this one up a little bit higher. I don't think that he's, how do I put this? I think that he will come back. I don't think that he's a priority, though. I think it's more of his decision. It's like, if you want to come back, you got to understand that. Look, I mean, 5.7 is not a terrible number, especially if you can kind of lower that cap number. It's a 1-year deal that they're projecting he will sign for. If it's a 1-year deal, we know that, Howie Roseman likes to add those void years. If you can add a void year, maybe that cuts that cap hit in half. It's really digestible. So I really think it's up to him. I don't want to. Priority to me means you have to go to this guy's door, talk to this guy, make sure you can get the best deal for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Brandon Graham will make that decision on his own. James Bradberry is a very, it's a sore subject for a lot of Eagles fans. Look, we have not had a secondary like this in a very long time, right? You had Darius Slay out there playing very well. You had James Bradberry playing very well. You had Chauncey Gardner-Johnson playing very well. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a guy that we're going to talk about on the second part of this list. He's a huge part of the success of this team, and I think of the success of the future for this team. James Bradberry, at I think 29 years old, he might have just turned 30. At 29 years old, $15.1 million, a 3-year contract. It's doable. I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if the Eagles brought James Bradberry back. I just don't think they'll do it at this contract. He's going to go out and be able to get his money if he wants to. I'm sure he will want to. He's said before that he doesn't want to play for cheap. I just don't think it's realistically going to happen, but I wouldn't mind him coming back. I really would not mind him coming back. Now, Boston Scott, I think these top 6 guys, if I'm being 100% honest, are going to be important to bring back, or at least some semblance of them. Now, Boston Scott at $1.1 million, I think it's almost a lock that he comes back to the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know what the market would be looking like for him if he was to leave the Eagles. He's been kind of our Swiss Army knife, right? He's done a little bit of everything that we've needed him to do. He's done it at the best, potential that he can do it at. And I think that he's made some big plays for us, had some big games for us, especially against the Giants. So I think Boston Scott, again, I think that he's a guy I would love to see come back, and I think he does. But is he a guy that you got to bang down his door and say, we need you back? I don't think that he is. So I think that this is a perfect spot for him. Okay, so this one is a tough one to kind of grasp, right? Because Jason KELCE is going to be our honorable mention for this top 10 list. Obviously, this would technically be his last year if he wanted to retire, right? He could save us $11 million by retiring. There's a lot to this. I would not mind. How do I put this? I love Jason KELCE. Jason KELCE is one of the best players to ever have played the center position. And if you have an argument with that, I really can't argue with that. That's a fact. In my opinion, that is a fact. He's one of the best players to put on an Eagles jersey. He's one of the best players to put that C on his chest, right? I have nothing but love for Jason KELCE. But when you take off that fandom, when you take off that, bias hat, you look at this guy, man. It's time for the Philadelphia Eagles to probably see what Cam Jurgens has. It's probably time for the Philadelphia Eagles to go a little bit younger on that offensive line. At some point, you're going to have to answer the question of what do you do without Lane Johnson? And if you have to answer that question while still not understanding who your center is or who your guard is or who, if there's too many questions to answer at once, I get a little bit nervous. I think this is the perfect time. It's not how... this isn't riding off into the sunset. Obviously, we would have loved to win that Super Bowl for him. But this is probably the perfect time for the Philadelphia Eagles to just get cut ties and let him go off. Let him have the great after football career that I'm sure he will be having. But it's a tough decision. So I'm not going to say that, he's a priority. He's not a priority. This is all on him. This is all on you, Jason. If you want to come back, awesome. If you don't, it probably helps us a little bit. And, you've had an illustrious career with the Philadelphia Eagles. We absolutely love you, man. Just think about it, kind of tears me up a little bit. It's a tearjerker thinking about Jason KELCE possibly not being on this team. But I had to add him to this because he is one of technically our free agents. So it is what it is. I hope he makes the right decision for him. I can't say either way, but I had to throw that honorable mention in. All right. So we are down to the nitty gritty, the top 5 guys. Now, a lot of people have agreed with the top 3, so we'll start there. I say that our number 1, and obviously Jalen Hurts is not a free agent. He is eligible for an extension, so I didn't add him to this. Obviously, he is a huge priority this offseason, probably the hugest priority this offseason for the Philadelphia Eagles. So before you guys say that, just wanted to let you know why he is not on this list. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, to me, is the top free agent on our roster. To me, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson answers so many questions all at once. He's proven that he can be a very, very high-rated slot cornerback when necessary. He's shown that he can play safety at the NFL level. He's answered almost every single question, and that hit in the Super Bowl really just once that, obviously it was tough because you're watching your team basically lose the game. But after that hit, I was like, yeah, he needs to come back. There's no question to me. My man needs to come back because he has the passion. So I love Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and I think that he is a very, very good player and can be a great player for the future of this Philadelphia Eagles team. Very expensive. $13.3 million per year is not cheap. That is not cheap at all. But I think it's worth it, and that's on a 5-year deal. So you're getting a guy throughout his prime, something the Eagles cannot have said really Maybe you say Malcolm Jenkins, but realistically, Brian Dawkins was the last safety we had throughout his prime. This could be the next one. I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is a perfect fit for Philly. He already said he wants to finish his career in Philadelphia. Let's go ahead and make that happen. Now, number 2, I have Javon Hargrave. That number is absurd. $20.1 million is what they have him pegged to make on his next contract. That's per year, all right? The contract would be 3 years, $60 million and some change. You know, obviously the whole number is there. I put him number 2, and the reason why I put him number 2, I know when you see that number, you're going to be like, we can't pay that. The Philadelphia Eagles are enamored, and for a good cause, a good reason. And if you watched the Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni press conference today, they kind of even doubled down on that philosophy that they want to build in the trenches. Where does he play? In the trenches. Javon Hargrave is a guy that has exceeded expectations. I do believe that, because people had questions. Can he be, a true defensive tackle coming from the Steelers, where he was primarily a nose tackle, wasn't really asked to do what we asked him to do, able to go out there this year. And I believe he eclipsed 10 sacks. I could be wrong about that. I know he was close. Don't have the numbers right in front of me, but he had a monster year while everybody else was having a monster year. Last year, he started off very, very hot, obviously petered off towards the end of the year. We've seen that he can be a top flight defensive tackle, and I think that the Eagles will prioritize that. I think the Eagles understand that while there is a lot of hope in what Jordan Davis can be, Jordan Davis is not a Javon Hargrave, not yet at least. So I think that I think they're going to eat it. I think they're going to eat that money. Again, you add a couple void years, maybe this turns into a 5-year contract with the last 2 years voided, and you kind of smoothen that cap hit out a little bit, maybe get it down to around $15-16 million per year. It's going to be a big hit, but this is a big player, and that's how the NFL works, unfortunately. Number 3, this is a guy that I've heard a lot of back and forth about. A lot of people are saying, TJ Edwards, we love him, but $12 million is a lot of money. 11.9 mil, I mean, look, that's a per year cap hit. Or not cap hit, at least we don't know what the cap hit would be. This is just what they're saying is the market value. So $11.9 million is a big number. Again, if you add a couple dummy years, that would be a 4-year deal that we would be adding him to. If you add a couple dummy years, that would kind of bring down that cap hit a little bit. There's things to do that you can obviously bring that cap hit a little bit down. So maybe we're not looking at 11.9 as the cap hit, but it is still a big contract. And the Eagles have not really shown the propensity to re-sign big-time linebackers. You look back at Michael Kendricks, Jordan Hicks, if you want to call them a big-time, DeMarco Ryans. There's been a lot of guys that have come on this team, and we've let them walk for really nothing. So will TJ Edwards be another guy added to that list? I don't think so. I think that they understand the importance of it at this point and understand that they don't have really players that are proven at that position, especially if you're letting a guy like Kaiser walk. So I will put him at number 3, and I do think that he is probably the 3rd most prioritized free agent by this organization. Now we get to the last 2, man. Miles Sanders, Booby's my dog. Miles Sanders is my dog. I am not going to sit here and say he got to walk. $7.2 million is cool with me. $7.2 million is cool with me. I understand everybody's high on Bijan, high on Jamar Gibbs. There's a lot of guys in this, draft that could be something, right? I liked Blake Corum. He's going back to college, but there's a lot of running backs in this class that could definitely do something with their time. And there's a guy from Florida. I can sit here all day and just talk about running backs because I'm actually in the process of looking at all the running backs. I want Miles back, man. I would love to have Miles back. I think that the Eagles don't owe it to him. I won't say that. I was going to say that, but I'm not going to say that. They don't owe it to him, but I would love to see him back. And I think at $7.2 million to know what you have coming back, I think that's a fair deal. I would love to know what you guys think about Miles Sanders. Okay, I want to know what you guys think because I really do feel like he's probably the hottest button topic right now. And I want to know if you guys will bring him back, especially around that money. 7.2. That's about the going rate for your second, second contract for a running back that isn't Barkley, because Barkley apparently is going to get $14 million. But that's a different story for a different time. Isaac Seumalo being the last guy on this list, the top 5. He's not a guy that's getting a lot of talk, and I'm actually kind of surprised. He's played very well. I believe he was ranked as the number 7 offensive guard on his side in the league. So he played very well, played amazingly. He has. I'm not going to say very well. He's played amazingly this year, and he's been very solid for us throughout his career. But I will say the Eagles did it with Isaac Seumalo. He wasn't the starter. We let the starter walk, and he came in and took over that job. You look at Driscoll, you look at Andre Dillard, who is a free agent as well. And maybe he comes back. He's been playing some guard. Maybe you do move a Cam Jurgens over there if Jason KELCE decides to come back. Maybe you draft a guy. I think that there's a lot of things you can do at that guard position. You already have the center position figured out, whether or not Jason KELCE comes back. So I think that Isaac Seumalo is important, and I think that they will prioritize him. But even looking at my own list, I'm starting to kind of look at maybe maybe I should have switched Isaac and Brandon Graham. You guys let me know. Because now that I'm saying my reasons out loud and everything. But either way, I do think that Isaac Seumalo is a big part of this team's success, and I do think that the Eagles will prioritize him to a certain extent. I don't know if he'll be necessarily the 5th guy. Now I'm kind of doubting myself, but you guys let me know. So that's the top 10. That is the top 10. All right. A nice little rounded out list. You guys let me know what you're thinking. All right. This is the point in the video where I ask you guys for your feedback. Who are your top 10 guys? How do you have them ordered? Maybe I'll go through the comments. I'll read some of your comments and I'll utilize that for a video down the line. But I want to know, man, because this is where we are at right now. A couple weeks away and all these guys are gone. So you guys let me know what you're thinking. Other than that, y'all know what it is, man. It is Fly Eagles Fly. And we are out here. Peace!
Eagles fans everywhere, this is for
Yeah.
you.
Fly Eagles flying on the team. Touchdown, touchdown. Time to get Jalen this ring. You don't really want to start a thing. This a Bird Gang Nation, baby. It's a Philly thing. Hater, and you looking like you type trash. I'm just here calling on Philly the podcast. And we can call a man dog or watch Miles score off the handoff. Rest of the division, your man soft. Jackson like Sean, hunting like Randall. Season head, early time to do him in. Your boy Philly Fresco. Thanks for tuning in.